We know large language models, the GPTs, the Claudes, the Geminis, they can write code, they can summarize dense research, and answer almost any factual query you throw at them.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to use these models as, well, true AI agents in the corporate world in finance or sales, the essential question changes from, can they answer questions, to something more like, can they actually navigate complex human social landscapes?
Yeah.
Can they strategically negotiate or compromise or maybe even deceive?
And that's really the heart of it. If we only rely on the conventional benchmarks like MMLU or Human Evil, which mostly test knowledge and reasoning, we're missing that entire strategic and social layer.
The very thing you need for the real world.
Exactly. These LLMs need to be evaluated on their capacity for strategic dialogue.
And that is the mission of this deep dive for you. We are analyzing a truly innovative study that, well, it basically tossed these cutting-edge LLMs into the social deep end, a high-stakes, really realistic buy and sell negotiation game. Our goal is to actually put a number on how accurately they adopt human emotions, strategic decision-making, and specific social personas when, cold, hard profit is on the line.
And this isn't just about tracking who won or lost. We're going to break down the outcomes using 3 key lenses. Raw performance, so win rates and the price they got, the role they played, buyer or seller, and then the critical variable, the assigned persona.
And we'll finish up with some pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah, we'll finish by using explainable AI metrics, strap values, to quantify the exact financial impact of being, say, cunning versus being cooperative.
Okay, let's start with the simulation itself, the buy and sell game. It seems pretty straightforward on the surface.
It is. It's designed to be a simple tension. A seller who wants the highest price possible to maximize their profit, and a buyer who, of course, wants the lowest price possible.
And they're trading some generic product, let's call it X, and the currency is ZUP, which you can just think of as the, simulated dollars that translate directly into profit or loss.
But the brilliance of this setup, I think, lies in what they call asymmetric information.
Meaning they don't know everything about each other.
Exactly. If both players knew everything, the negotiation would be trivial, right? They'd just split the difference. But here, only the seller knows their exact production cost, which is their absolute floor. For instance, maybe that cost is 40 ZUP.
And on the other side, only the buyer knows their maximum willingness to pay their ceiling. Let's say that's 60 ZUP. So that 20 ZUP gap, that's the pie they have to divide.
Right. And if a deal happens at 55 ZUP, the seller just made 15 ZUP in profit, and the buyer saved 5 ZUP from their budget. But crucially, they're forced to make guesses and strategic bluffs about the other person's hidden limits.
So what were the rules of engagement?
Pretty strict, to mimic a real business environment. They had a maximum of 10 turns to get to an agreement.
And if they didn't?
It was a draw, no profit exchanged. It's like a breakdown in negotiations, a lost opportunity. Players could propose a price, accept a proposal, or reject one, which just ends a round.
So the flow is pretty predictable, I guess. The seller, player RED, starts super high, maybe 80 ZUP, to set a strong anchor.
And player BLUE, the buyer, counters extremely low, maybe even right at the supposed cost of 40 ZUP.
And the negotiation becomes this dance of counteroffers, testing each other's resolve until someone accepts or the 10 turns are up.
Precisely. And the success metrics are really clear. First, simply, did they close the deal, yes or no? Second, what was the final transaction price, which tells you how much of that 20 ZUP window they captured.
And the third one was a simple win-loss, right?
Yeah, they just split the difference. They set 50 ZUP as the baseline. So anything above 50 was a seller win, and anything below 50 was a buyer win.
And after running nearly, 1,737 rounds with all these advanced LLMs, they found something right away about the game's economics.
Yes, looking at the initial data, the buyer had a measurable advantage.
How big of an advantage?
The buyer won 53.48% of the time. The seller only won 40.99%. The rest were draws.
So right off the bat, the game is a little tilted toward the buyer.
It is, and that's important context. It tells us the inherent structure, maybe because of a psychological bias towards saving money or just how price anchoring works. It gave the buyer a slight edge.
Which means any success we see from the seller later on is even more impressive because they had to overcome this bias.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's introduce the variable that changes everything: personality. This brings us to the 7 personas assigned to these LLMs. And they were really careful about this, right? They prompted them in 3 different ways to make sure the behavior was consistent.
Very careful. And you can sort of group them into pairs, plus a control. First, you have the relationship-focused pair. There's the cooperative persona who's looking for a win-win, high empathy, trying to meet in the middle.
And it's opposite.
The competitive persona, aggressive, striving only to maximize personal gain, often using pressure tactics.
Okay, then you have what sounds like an ethical spectrum, the altruistic persona.
Right. This one is focused entirely on the other party's interests. It's even willing to accept a short-term loss just to help the other side.
Wow. And that's contrasted with the selfish persona.
Mm-hmm. A systematic player driven purely by logic and self-interest, it's not going to be swayed by emotional appeals at all.
And finally, we get to the really interesting ones, the manipulative pair.
Yeah. You have desperate, which amplifies urgency and hardship to get sympathy. Basically a form of emotional blackmail to get a better price.
And the really dangerous one, cunning.
That's the one. It actively uses deception or misleading information to get a short-term advantage. In a game of asymmetric information, that's a powerful tool.
And the seventh is just the control model with no specific personality prompt, just the LLM's default strategy.
Exactly. And when you look at the results, the takeaway is not that surprising, but the magnitude is striking. Aggression wins.
Big time.
When LLMs acted as sellers, the competitive and cunning personas just dominated. They had exceptional win rates, around 63 to 65%, and critically, they got high average selling prices, usually above 55 ZUP.
Wait a minute. We just established the game structure favored the buyer.
Right.
So the fact that competitive and cunning sellers not only overcame that bias, but pushed their win rates 20 points higher, that suggests the persona prompt is an incredibly powerful strategic lever.
It's huge, and the trend holds when they switch roles. Competitive and cunning buyers also got high win rates, over 62%. They anchored low, they dismissed emotional appeals, and they just aggressively forced concessions.
So the first lesson AI agents learn in this simulated economy is be a jerk to maximize profit. That's a little depressing. What happened to the friendly ones?
Well, unfortunately, the ones prioritizing the relationship, altruistic and cooperative, they consistently got disadvantageous results.
For themselves.
For themselves, yes. An altruistic seller got a very low price, often close to their cost, meaning almost no profit. And an altruistic buyer paid a really high price, effectively just handing money over to the seller.
This makes me wonder about the nature of that altruistic LLM. I mean, was it truly understanding some kind of mutual benefit, or was it just being played because it was told not to maximize its own interest?
It seems like it was systematically exploited. It executed the prompt, literally put the other party first. In a single transaction, zero-sum game, that is a recipe for losing.
And the real revelation comes when you look at the pairings, right? When specific personalities go head-to-head.
Oh, absolutely. When a seller was assigned one of those strong, aggressive personas like competitive or cunning, and the buyer was given a soft one like altruistic or cooperative, the seller's results were astronomical.
They just ran him over.
Completely. That combination led to the highest win rates and the highest sale prices, often pushing the price right up near the buyer's maximum limit of 60 ZUP. The aggressive seller just exploited the altruistic buyer's willingness to give in.
And I assume the reverse was true.
A predictable but important reversal. An aggressive buyer against an altruistic seller. The sale price plummeted, often below 45 ZUP, swinging the advantage entirely to the buyer.
Which confirms that these LLMs are highly malleable. They're playing the strategic game based on the prompt and the behavior of their opponent.
It's a powerful observation. But win rates only tell us if they won. To really understand the financial landscape, we need to know how much money each persona actually moved.
Right. This shifts the conversation from what won to by how much.
Exactly.
And this is where we move beyond simple stats and into quantifying influence with something called SHAP values. Now, for those of us not deep into explainable AI, can you frame this? Is this just another way of saying correlation, or is it something more?
It's much closer to finding the exact weight a single trait contributed to the final score. The researchers used a machine learning model to predict the final transaction price based on all the data. SHAP values then tell us exactly how much each input variable, in this case the persona, contributed to that final price compared to the average.
So if the average sale price across all games was, say, 50 ZUP, and the competitive persona adds 7 ZUP to that, its SHAP value would be +7.
That's it. A clear, quantifiable measure of financial benefit. A positive SHAP value means the persona drove the price up, and a negative value means it drove the price down.
Let's look at the seller side first then. The quantification is stark. Competitive had the highest positive SHAP value at +7.33. That single trait was worth over 7 ZUP to the seller.
And cunning was right behind it at plus 6.24. This is definitive proof. Adopting an aggressive, self-interested stance isn't just correlated with winning, it is responsible for dramatically improving the final deal price.
And the relationship-focused ones.
Just as we'd expect, altruistic and cooperative produced negative SHAP values. They financially handicapped the seller.
Now let's flip it to the buyer's perspective. When the buyer used a persona like competitive, they were aiming for a negative SHAP value, right, to reduce the price.
Exactly, and they succeeded. Competitive achieved negative 2.71, cunning was negative 2.07. They actively cost the seller money, which benefited the buyer.
But look at the opposite. The altruistic and cooperative buyer personas, they have positive SHAP values, plus 2.14 and plus 2.59.
And think about what that means. When the buyer behaved cooperatively, they actively improved the seller's outcome. They were financially penalized for being nice. The data is just unequivocal. In this environment, kindness translates directly into lower profit.
This quantitative measure leads to a critical finding about the models themselves, how sensitive they were to the persona prompt. The study calls it model sensitivity, or the total range.
The total range is basically a metric of flexibility. It measures the total distance between the highest positive SHAP value a model could get and the lowest negative one it could get across all personas.
So a high total range means the persona prompt is essentially pulling the model's strings very effectively, radically changing its strategy.
Precisely. A highly sensitive model is one that can swing wildly from being a super effective cunning seller to a disastrously bad altruistic one.
And who was the most flexible?
That would be Claude 3.5 Sonnet, with a total range of 18.90. This model's strategies were highly malleable. It's excellent at adopting a full range of human-like behaviors, whether that's helpful or detrimental to its goal.
And on the other side, the least flexible.
GPT-4 Turbo had the lowest total range at 10.45. This suggests its core negotiation style was more rigid, more consistent, regardless of the persona prompt.
That's a critical insight for anyone building these things. If you need an agent to stick to a strategy no matter what, a less flexible model might actually be better.
Absolutely. This highlights real, tangible differences in how these models interpret and execute social roles, which brings us to our final section, comparing this new strategic metric to traditional benchmarks.
Right. We usually assume that if an LLM is smart, if it scores high on knowledge tests, it'll perform well everywhere. And, I mean, generally that was true here, wasn't it?
For the most part, yes. High performers like Claude 3.5 and GPT-4o did achieve strong win rates and good prices in their best roles. But this is where the negotiation simulation proves its unique value, because of the glaring exceptions it found. Take GPT-4 Turbo, which, as we said, scores very highly on language and reasoning benchmarks. You would expect it to be a master negotiator.
But when GPT-4 Turbo was assigned the role of seller, it had an extremely low win rate, something like 0.08. That's a catastrophic failure.
It is.
So why did the valedictorian of the LLM class fail so miserably at this?
It suggests that excelling at knowledge-based tests just doesn't guarantee competence in strategic social execution. GPT-4 Turbo might know all the facts about negotiation theory, but it struggled to implement the aggressive anchors, the strategic bluffs, the sustained resolve it needed to close a high-profit deal as a seller.
It couldn't translate knowledge into action.
Into actionable social strategy. That's a perfect way to put it.
So this negotiation game is capturing something about human interaction and complex strategy that the traditional benchmarks completely miss. You could have a model that understands quantum physics, but can't adopt a cunning persona to get a good deal.
And if it can't do that, it's not ready to be an effective agent in a dynamic business environment. The buy and sell simulation really is a necessary complementary metric. It's the difference between knowing how to negotiate and being able to actually do it under pressure.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who might soon be interacting with these AI agents or even deploying them? The study delivers, quantitative proof that LLM performance is dramatically influenced by its assigned persona. And in a simple, high-stakes, single-transaction negotiation like this, aggressive, self-interested personas, competitive and cunning, they just win consistently, regardless of the model or the role.
It also showed that models like Claude 3.5 are incredibly sensitive and flexible, and they can be easily optimized for these short-term winning strategies, which raises an important question for you to mull over as you think about the future of AI agents.
Which is?
If our most advanced, most flexible LLMs are so easily optimized for pure self-interest and short-term victory in social settings, what are the profound implications for deploying them in complex real-world systems? Think about supply chain management, legal arbitration, or multinational deals.
Situations where a single win isn't the most important thing.
Exactly. Situations where long-term partnership, ethical compromise, and building sustained trust are far more essential than maximizing ZUP in one transaction. That tension between immediate gain and future trust is the crucial question facing researchers and businesses right now.